G'day everybody, welcome back to another episode of Crafted by Tim. Today I've got a very special video for you guys. When I did the ordering of my forge burner, Gameco Artisan Supplies were happy enough to actually send me out a little bit of a care package. They sent me out this knife making kit, which I think is awesome. This is really cool. Artisan Supplies, they sent me out this knife making kit and they wanted me to make a video on it. Now, I haven't done any research on this, so I don't know what's inside here. I mean, straight off the bat, I can see a few things, but the only thing that I wanted to know was I jumped onto the website and I had a look at the actual product. It's only 30 bucks. And I think that's great. Like, the idea that you can spend 30 bucks and you're making your first knife. There are also other knife blanks on their website selling for up to $30. And I'm gonna, of course, be leaving links in the description. Check them out because it's actually really, really cool. So let's get this thing open. Super excited about this. Very excited. So first up, we have knife instructions. Wow, it's actually pretty thick. There's quite a bit in there. Okay, so we have a piece of 1084/1075 steel. So does that mean that it could be 1084 or 1080/75? I'm not entirely sure. I'm gonna double check that. But we have a piece of steel in here. It's looks like 3mm thick, approximately 220mm long, and about 40mm wide, and it's 38mm wide. This piece of steel, according to the instructions, is annealed, so it's soft, and so it should be relatively easy to work with. We have two scales here. These look like shear scales for making the handle. That's actually really nice. Shear always looks very, very nice. Have a look at what else we got. We have some nice brass pin, and we also have some hollow brass tubing. That's interesting. That'd be kind of cool to maybe put a lanyard hole in there. Yeah, lanyard tubing. There you go. Okay, and the last item is some, I'm probably not saying this right, but Rhinout sandpaper. That's pretty cool. And it looks like it's got 180, 320, and two 400 grits. So all in all, it's not a bad spread, but that's actually really, really cool. Right at the bottom of this page, it says, follow these instructions to create your first knife. And considering that this whole idea is meant to be making your first knife ever, and only spending about 30 bucks on it, I want to try and keep this to what most people are going to have in the backyard. Now, of course, I just finished up the forge, so I will probably be using the forge to heat treat this, but for the most part, I'm more or less just going to be using the things that you will have at your own home. So I'm going to try and attempt to complete this build with what they give me in the kit: a few files, the forge, an angle grinder, and a drill press. This sounds like fun. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to figure out what we are going to do for a design. So I have the piece of steel here. What I've gone for is a sort of like a kukri design. We have a 4-inch blade and I think a 4.5-inch handle. Yeah. Now this still leaves me with not actually very much to spare at all, but it's not going to be a massive knife, but it's not going to be overly short either. So the reason why I went for a little bit more of a kukri style knife is because I already have more sort of buck knives that are meant for bushcraft and such, but I don't really have anything that's really good for betoning timber down to small timber. With a project that's coming up not too far in the future, or it might have already come out by the time you see this video, I'm going to need to be able to create firewood relatively easily. And I reckon a kukri is actually not too bad for this. I believe that it's going to be big enough that I can baton down timber relatively easily with very little effort, and I'm not going to be worried about breaking it either. The steel that they give you is nice and thick, so I should be able to get a really good edge on it whilst also retaining a lot of strength. 1075 is actually pretty good for strength. 1055 would probably be bare minimum that you would want for a knife. However, people have made knives from railroad spikes, which are generally, I believe, 1045. If you don't know what this 10 next to numbers is, it basically describes the carbon content. So here we have 1075, and 1075 is basically saying it's a simple carbon steel, and the 75, it means that it has 0.75% carbon in it. Now that we have our design, it's time that we photocopy our design, to which we can then trace out all of our design details and such. Okay, so the next step is to cut this out. Now we have to be careful to stay close to the line, but try not to go over it. When I went to draw out my pattern, I realized something. You'll notice that I left about a 2mm gap all the way around. I also noticed that my printer actually changes the size of what I'm photocopying, which is weird, but it's fine. I can actually work with that because it takes up a little bit more metal. And I can also shape it to my hand. Now remember, if you are going to shape it to your hand, just make sure that you shape it keeping in mind that you're going to be changing it as it goes along, and you're also going to be putting a handle on it, so don't worry too much about it not feeling quite right, because once you put the handle on it, you can shape it a little bit more and it'll look and feel perfect. But we're going to start off with the angle grinder, and then we're going to move on to some files. Now, when it comes to beveling, there is a bunch of different things that you can do, and inside here we have the instruction manual, and one of the first things that it talks about is beveling, and beveling can really make or break a knife. And it really depends on what sort of bevels you want to have on a knife. For me, I'm thinking a starboard grind should be pretty good. So what we're planning on doing is some starboard bevels. This is very similar to a Scandi grind. Anyway, so I've got my my spring gauge dividers here. We're going to measure about 10 mil. There we go. And we're going to adjust very roughly. Follow the general contour of the blade. So that's where I want the bevel. Now we want to work on the handle. We want to make sure that our hole placement is good. One more thing that we want to do just before we go on is mark the center line for the bevel. Here I've got a little drill bit here. This is a 3mm drill bit, and I think this is like 3.2 millimeters thick. The steel. So what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that there's a fresh coat of marker on here. Using our flat surface, This could be a tabletop, it doesn't really matter. We're just going to scribe using the drill bit right the way along. There we go. Have a nice solid line there. And then we're going to flip it over and then do the exact same thing. So there you can see that we have two very, very close lines. These two lines are going to be where our bevels come to. When the bevels come to this side, we'll stop and we'll do the same thing on that side and then stop. And then what we're going to do is we'll be able to take that maybe 0.5 millimeter of an edge and we'll be able to heat treat with that without having the risk of melting or cracking the blade. A quick little jig to fit inside my vise to help hold my knife nice and steady without damaging edge there. We're going to drill these all out with a 3mm hole first, and then this one right up the end here where the lanyard hole is going to be, we're going to drill that out with a 6mm? I think it was 6. Here I've got a Milo tin full of soapy water. It doesn't have to be hot or cold or anything in particular. Lukewarm is perfectly fine. And we're going to grab out some gloves. We're going to start off with 180 grit. And then we grab a sanding block. Put a bit of water on this. Let's get to work sanding. I actually really like the grit choice that they gave me. To start off with, I started with 180 grit. I haven't actually gone up from 180, but it's really interesting because 180 takes off those scratches that's left by the file really, really quickly. But at the same time, it's not actually too bad of a finish. You'll also notice that I haven't done much to the handle area, and that's because this entire area is going to be covered in wood, apart from the spine. So I tried to just do a little bit of a rough cleanup around the edge there, and this roughness will also help the epoxy bond a little bit easier. Okay, so I've just decided that I should probably temper them tonight. We're going to take the knife and we're going to chuck it inside the forge. We're going to get it up to a non-magnetic temperature, and we're going to then quench it in some peanut oil. We don't need to heat treat the handle. It's actually not a bad idea. If you use spray paint cans, you can cut off the head, obviously once they're empty. Just fold over the corners, the top end. They make great quenching tanks because they're usually pretty good sizes. Oh, we also have to heat up the peanut oil a little bit, so I'm going to grab a small piece of scrap and just throw it inside the forge, get it up nice and hot, and then throw it into the peanut oil. Spray paint can. So this is the knife as of right now. That last quench, I was so certain that I got it right. And I picked up the file and I went to do the thing and it bit in. And I was like, why? I swear I got that right. And I did. The problem is, this is made from 1075. Most files are actually about 95% carbon, which means that these files are generally harder than the knife. There are a few special files that have a much higher carbon, closer to 1.2% carbon, which is really high. So as you can see, this particular file skates right across it. I believe this is a 1095 one, and I can cross-reference to this one as well. This one skates really good because this one is actually an old file. Okay, so we got that set to 210 degrees Celsius, and we're going to leave it there for 2 hours. As done previously, we will have our Milo tin full of nice soapy water. So we got this to a pretty high grit, but I made a mistake, as I always do. I'll try and throw up some pictures here, but because I know that this camera isn't going to be able to pick these up. But there's a few spots, like here, here, and right on the tip here, that the blade is actually kind of thick. But the problem is that a few micrometers is enough to stop an edge from being able to cut really well. Now we get to destroy our nice finish and go back to using the file. But we can't just use any old file, because remember, a normal file is going to skate, so we have to use a special file. Now this particular file is actually designed and used for sharpening saw blades. Now I want to bring it right back to a nice thin edge. We'll then be able to go back through the grids and get back right up to a nice 400 grit finish. Hopefully I'll have enough sandpaper left over. If not, I can always outsource to this, but I would like to mainly keep it to what the kit has available. I'll let you know if I do run out of sandpaper though. Okay, so now we're going to work on the handle. We have our blade all taped up. First thing we're going to do is we're going to sand these flush. So I've got my nice flat surface here. Our two pieces pretty flat now. The next step is we want to figure out where our blade is actually going to sit. So I'll grab one of these templates. I'm going to just eyeball this a bit. Make sure that you leave plenty of material around. However, I'm going to bring this right to the back. What I'm going to do is I'm going to leave it probably close to maybe 5 millimeters from the very back. Probably not even 5 millimeters. But we also want to make sure that we're keeping this as flat as possible with the back, because we are going to be trying to line up these two pieces of timber the best we can so we get a matching grain. Okay, so now that we have our handle all drawn out on here, it's time that we get to cut this out in the bandsaw. Oh yeah, that's right. You know what? It's fine. We don't even need the bandsaw. We don't need you. I'm sorry, but we don't. It's fine. We'll just do it on the linisher. All right. Well, fine. Be like that. We have our knife. I've taken off all the tape that might interfere with the glue up here. We've got that ready to go. We have our epoxy. Don't think it's a fast set epoxy. Oh wow. Okay, it is definitely not a fast setting epoxy. Do not apply strain to the bond until practical strength is achieved in 12 hours. Maximum strength is achieved in 4 days. Wow, that just made this a really long build. Okay, well that's fine. Here I have some acetone. This is to clean down the steel and as well as the scales. Look at that. We're going to clean down this, make sure that there's no oil or anything left on it. You can just see how much we've taken off there. We're going to give that a few minutes to dry, and then we'll get to work with the actual glue. Okay, so it's been a few minutes now. Just before I touch mark this, I've got a nice, I don't know what grit this is, but it's a really high grit. So the best way that I've found doing this, and I'm no expert in sharpening knives, but here's the deal, right? If you try to sharpen a knife and it just gets blunter, you're doing something wrong. Adjust the way you're doing it and then try it again. Because the only way that you really learn is actually doing it. So I'm just going to go for this, going into the stone, holding it at about a, what is it, like a 45-degree angle or something, and just making sure that my edge is touching. Now, because of the shape of this blade, I have to kind of use the edge of the stone here to make sure that I get right in here and keep that area sharp, but nonetheless. And then I come back. And then go forward. And come back. And you should see, like, in almost instantaneous results, depending on how coarse or fine your stone is. I know what you're thinking, Tim. This isn't an angle grinder, nor is it a drill press. But, I'd strongly suggest that everyone should have one of these. Like, they're great. They're good fun. And we're going to just burn in our little touch mark there. This is pale boiled in the linseed oil, and just a little bit of mineral terps to help thin it out a little bit. Helps it penetrate into the timber a little bit better. Test it on some leather. That's better. Okay, so it works well for leather. That's pretty good. But what else does it work well? What about betoning timber? Okay, so this timber is actually pretty rotted. Probably wouldn't burn for very long. Got a nice hard piece over here. Try that one. I'm going to cut this down to something more better. That's pretty sweet. So this, I believe, is actually red gum. Red gum is a really hard timber, so the fact that this thing can just slice through it like it's, well, not exactly like it's butter, but I'm actually really happy with that. Like, look how clean that cut is. And as much as I really don't want to do this, this is a piece of mild steel. Let me grab a hammer. Let's do it. Wow. No edge rollover. Let me grab some safety glasses. Bit of a callback to what happened on my Facebook page not too long ago. So look at that. The edge is still fine. No edge rollover. Certainly no cracking. Absolutely amazing. I am outstanded by that. Yeah, it's all just cosmetic damage. That is awesome. Well, that was fun. I hope you guys really enjoyed this video because I really enjoyed making this knife. I gotta say it, kit made it really easy. Things I like about the kit was that it was really easy to work the steel. Even after it was hardened, it wasn't really difficult to get that high quality file, the sharper file for sharpening saw blades and that sort of stuff, and to refine that edge to make sure that I'm getting a good cutting edge. That wasn't difficult. I'm outstanded by the knife's ability to just glide through timber like that. It was really, really awesome to see, and with no edge rollover, and it's still nice and straight and everything like that, and it feels good in the hand. It's a bit weighty. Some people like that weight. Me personally, I think I should have done a few minor adjustments to help balance it a little bit better because it is really handle heavy. But for the most part, I'm really, really liking the way that this turned out. It is definitely an awesome little knife. As for the kit itself, it was amazing. I think that that sort of kit is just outstanding. It was really easy to work with, and the instructions were great. It was so in depth. So all in all, I reckon this was one of the most fun projects that I've done in a long time, and I just got to say that I really love this kit. Thank you again, Artisan Supplies, for sending out the kit to me. Guys, please go check out Artisan Supplies. I'll leave a link in the description to their main page, their main store page, the actual kit itself on their store, as well as their Instagram, so you can follow them on Instagram. Guys, seriously, check them out. It's not just about knife making. If you're into leatherwork or anything like that, jewelry making, anything, they have what you need. And it's usually these things that are kind of difficult to find anywhere else. So thank you again to Artisan Suppliers. I hope you guys tune in next week. I have another cool project going. But in the meantime, remember to stay safe, happy crafting, and as always, cheers.